Let's head to Knoxville, Tennessee, where I will be this weekend with my two children in attendance at Neyland Stadium, which is why, of course, Texas A&M will win the game. Got to teach them at a young age how to be disappointed in their favorite football team. No, the reality is, Stephen, in this matchup, this is two major, it's not, it's X's and O's, it's coaching, but it's sort of vague and nebulous. Let me lay out what I mean about that. For Texas A&M, they have better players than Tennessee, in particular along the line of scrimmage. The best rushing defense in the SEC, Texas A&M, best rushing offense in Tennessee. But Texas A&M has better players. That's one piece of context. Texas A&M mentally, where are you? Consistency and consistent effort and production has been the question under Jimbo Fisher. They get up for the big game. What about the next one? And now they've lost twice. Where is Texas A&M mentally? And do they leave their brains on the bus? That's my concern if I'm a Texas A&M fan is, do we show up and play with the same amount of energy and focus and intensity as we did against Bama in the first half in particular, in an extremely hostile environment that is absolutely ready to go? 2 weeks of rest for Tennessee, which brings me to my main point of the game. Josh Heupel, show me what you got. If you are an elite offensive coach who is a wizard who can design and implement an elite college SEC offense, this is your game, big guy. This is your game, because the other team has better defensive players. They're going to pressure your quarterback, and they have a really weak secondary. You better figure out a scheme to take your quarterback who can throw it over the mountains and attack that weak secondary. And you've had 2 weeks to prepare and get healthy to do it. This is about Josh Heupel showing the country that his scheme and his brain and his X's and O's and his vision are championship caliber, because A&M has the slightly better athletes, and this offense doesn't normally beat better athletes. What do you think of the pressures on Heupel to show us something creative, especially in the first quarter, first half? Because I don't think they're going to line up and just run the football between the tackles at Texas A&M.
I think it's probably unlikely that Tennessee, with the number one ranked rushing offense, like you said, I think it's probably unlikely they have a huge day running the ball. I think just Texas A&M is just better on the defensive line. I like the fact that Tennessee got Mays back at center against South Carolina. I think that group played better. So I think there was some optimism from an offensive line standpoint. Tennessee might turn a corner. I think watching that game last week with Alabama and Texas A&M, I think if I'm Josh Heupel, I have to be ecstatic, because Alabama with Jalen Milroe and those receivers for Alabama, albeit they're very good, Tennessee's just as capable in the passing game. You got a more experienced quarterback in Joe Milton. You should be able to attack Texas A&M secondary, just like Alabama did last week. So I think just from a matchup standpoint and from a personnel standpoint, I think Texas A&M has the better roster here. I think my intangibles here are, both defensive lines are good at creating pressure. Same thing for Tennessee. They've been great this year at tackles for loss and getting sacks and pressure. Can you do that on Max Johnson? Because I think Texas A&M's offensive line is a concern too. So I think the matchups in the line of scrimmage are going to tell us a lot. If I'm Tennessee, I'm using some tempo to try and wear down those guys. I would be fast and try to get those first downs and get the offense going, set up the big plays through the air, which have not been there for Tennessee. So I think the intangibles to me, Tennessee's at home, A&M struggled on the road. A&M's coming off a physical game against Alabama. Where are they? This home crowd for Tennessee.
Bye week.
A&M's got the better roster.
Huge advantage from the intangible standpoint for Tennessee. Huge advantage. Here's my concern, and I do think if they're going to win, the defensive line has to be great for Tennessee. They're going to have to get pressure on Max Johnson, which I think they can do. A lot of good weapons on that A&M offense, though, as we've seen, and special teams, by the way, for A&M. Keep an eye. Always big plays by them. Here's the problem, though. You mentioned can Milton and those guys do the same thing that Milroe did, and I don't know if they can. I think that's the concern. Milroe is a quick twitch athlete. Milton is not. Milroe, 10.4 yards per attempt, 5th in the nation. Joe Milton, 13th in the SEC. That's 7.3 yards per attempt. They have not been nearly as explosive down the field as Alabama has. And that's, again, 63% completion percentage for Joe Milton, one of the worst in the conference. Quarterback rating, one of the worst in the conference. He is one of the least efficient starting quarterbacks in the conference. 2 turnovers against South Carolina. You know what they did after that? They ran the football. They turned around and ran the football. And South Carolina sucks. So they did. So they did a great job. They're not going to be able to do that. And they're going to have to rely on Milton early to make plays to loosen up the defense if they want to go back to the running game. I've taken Oregon on the road against Washington outright. Taking USC on the road against Notre Dame outright. I'm taking Missouri on the road against Kentucky outright. Texas A&M wins on the road in Neyland Stadium because the quarterback cannot make the big plays down the field to loosen up the defense, and it becomes a low-scoring line of scrimmage battle in which Tennessee cannot run the football.
If it's a low-scoring game, I think that favors Texas A&M.
I might also be too close to this one, Stephen.
Well, here's a stat that I think to point out to sort of emphasize what you were talking about. Plays of 30+ yards for Tennessee last year in passing, they had 40. They only have 8 so far this year. The season's not complete, obviously, but they're well off pace of where they
haven't played anybody. They haven't played anybody.
Right. They've had opportunities against questionable secondaries, and of course, Brew McCoy was also lost hurt, in the game against South Carolina last week. So
they have not played a legitimate offense the entire season, and they haven't played a legitimate defense the entire season. They still got boat raced by Florida on the road.
There's just something. This is, like we said, this is one of those things you're juggling. You look at the personnel for A&M after last week. It is a little tough to have confidence in A&M.
No, I agree.
That's why I'm taking Tennessee.
I have no clue, honestly, because I'm too close.
I don't either.
I'm too close to the situation, but this would also be a playoff game, much like Kentucky and Missouri. The winner could still go on to have a 10-win season. The loser could crumble. And so it's a huge game for both programs. It's a huge game for both coaching staffs, huge game for both, for the quarterback situation. I mean, it's a mammoth game, and it's why it's the 3:30 kickoff, of course, on CBS. And again, I'm too close to the situation. So as an alumni taking my kids for the first time, of course they're going to lose. That makes me that puts me too close. So I acknowledge that right out of the gate. So Texas A&M, but do with that information what you will. So there you go.
We were different on a lot of games this week. I'm just taking Tennessee just for the intangibles, the week off. A&M on the road struggles, Tennessee at home. I just think that home crowd, Tennessee finds a way to get a close victory.
All right.